Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 2024 City Development Delegated Committee, and I declare the meeting open at 6:33 a.m. PM. Apologies, everyone. Before I proceed, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation, and we offer our respects to the elders of these traditional lands, and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, past, present, and emerging. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leaders as well. In relation to mobile phones, everyone, I kindly remind everyone to switch your phones off or turn them to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the gallery, I advise the gallery that this meeting is being recorded and you will be available, and the recording will be available on Council's website. All care is taken to maintain your privacy, however, your presence may be recorded. In accordance with Council's governance rules, meetings may not be photographed, filmed or recorded without the consent of the Chief Executive Officer. Chief Executive Officer, are there any requests to record the meeting? Thank you very much. Apologies and virtual attendances. We have received an apology tonight from Councillor Michael Clark, and in relation to Rule 72.3 of the Council's governance rules, I wish to advise that Councillor Bernadette Thomas is attending this meeting remotely. Councillor Thomas, can you please confirm that you can hear and see this meeting?
Thanks, Councillor Tran. Yes, I can hear and see you all. Thanks.
Amazing, Councillor Thomas. And I can confirm we can hear and see you loud and clear. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, I ask if any councillors have a conflict of interest in relation to any of the agenda items tonight. And there are no conflicts of interest. I'll now explain public question time and requests to address the committee. There are two opportunities for members of the public to participate in tonight's meeting. The first is public question time, and the second is requests to address the committee. Addresses to the committee will be heard immediately prior to the consideration of each item. We will now move into public question time. I'll explain how public question time works. Public question time is managed in accordance with Council's governance rules. Members of the public can submit a maximum of 3 questions prior to the commencement of the meeting. And as Chair, I will decide who answers the questions. Public question time is limited to 15 minutes unless an extension of the public question time is resolved by Council. CEO, do we have any questions tonight?
Yes, Chair, we have 13 questions.
Lovely.
The first question is from Samantha Meredith, and she asks, when will the installation of traffic lights and pedestrian crossing at Hopkins Street and Hallenstein Street, as well as upgrade signals at Hopkins Street and Whitehall Street occur?
Chief Executive Officer, can I ask that you answer that question, please?
Yes, certainly. Council officers are working with the Department of Transport and Planning to progress design submissions and approvals for intersection upgrades at both Joseph's Road and Hallenstein Street, Moreland Road, Hopkins Street intersections, and have met with DTP to discuss safety issues along Hopkins Street, including the reduction of speed limit to 40 kilometres per hour. These discussions have been positive and are progressing well, and later this week the Mayor and I are accompanying the Minister responsible for roads, Melissa Horne, to the site to take her through the changes that we want.
Terrific. Any subsequent questions, Chief Executive Officer?
Yes. The second question from Samantha is, what steps is the Council currently taking to address the safety concerns for pedestrians in the Joseph Road precinct?
Again, Ms Haddock, I might defer to yourself.
Certainly. So just to reinforce that Council is committed to enhancing the precinct with a range of improvements, including road upgrades, pedestrian paths, traffic signals, bike lanes, landscaping and drainage. To minimise disruptions, the current works program will be staged starting from March this year. Stage 1 involves reconstructing Joseph's Road. It's expected to finish by late December 2024. Stage 2 will address drainage and footpaths on Hopkins Street. Liladia Park improvements are slated for completion by the end of June this year, and Council continues to work with the Department of Transport and Planning and the local police to improve safety along Hopkins Street.
Thank you very much, CEO.
The next question is, what measures in the 2020 and 2024 does the Council plan to implement to address the lack of safe crossings and pathways on Whitehall Street, Hallenstein Street, Ward Street, Joseph Road, Nielsen Place, Whiteman Street and Hopkins Street.
I might address this one myself. Council officers have prepared a program of works to address traffic and safety issues in both the immediate and longer term, as the Joseph Road precinct experiences growth and change with ongoing development activities. These treatments include, but are not limited, to pedestrian crossings, signage and on-road paintings and line marking. Council continues to work closely with Joseph Road Action Group and other stakeholders in the precinct to deliver remedial solutions, including those raised in the question. I know the councillors have been briefed and are across the numerous issues raised by the particular groups, and we'll continue to keep them apprised of any updates as we go along the journey. Are there any other questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
John Stella asks the following question. Can the council please indicate if there is a plan for the improvement of the amenity, appearance, cleanliness and better use of the Footscray CBD area? The council website has listed plans for the improvement of other hubs around the municipality, though Footscray CBD is in a state of neglect.
Again, might address this myself. Yeah. Council has undertaken several public realm improvements in Footscray CBD in the past and plans to continue incremental upgrades subject to available budget. Projects completed last financial year include upgrades to Byron Plaza with new lighting, seating and landscaping, Dalmoe Street with a complete reconstruction of the road as a shared space with seating and tree planting and installation of the Nicholson Street play space, a temporary installation to attract families with small children to the area. Though I do note that it does attract quite a few young adults as well. And this financial year, there will be upgrades to Blackstone Lane to provide a more inviting pedestrian space with a new lighting installation in Nicholson Street between Paisley and Irving Streets. In terms of longer term projects, Council is working with the state government to centralise buses in the Footscray CBD along Irving Street, allowing direct connections between buses, trains and trams. And once buses are removed from Paisley Street, a complete reconstruction of the street can take place with new drainage, extended footpaths and more greening. This project is subject to state government funding being provided for the relocation of the buses, and Council is working with the state government on the upgrade of the Route 82 tram, which will provide opportunities along the route for more pedestrian-friendly streets and tree planting. All these projects mentioned have the same aim of increasing activity in the Footscray CBD to provide an improved amenity for residents, traders and visitors alike.
Thank you, Chair. We now have a question from Sharon Schwab, who asks, in relation to Footscray Park's western lawn, was the design consultant asked to include and/or did Council suggest to include any items that do not form part of the Footscray Park Master Plan 2011? If yes, what were those items and who authorised this?
CEO, I might defer to yourself for this one.
Yes, and I might get some support from the Director of Infrastructure, but I'm happy to start. So we did cover some of this last week. The master plans in themselves are the starting point. So we do a lot of consultation with them and they're a broad document that covers the area that's being master planned. The designs used for the detailed design on construction briefs are not attached, and we need to do that piece of work once the master plan's been endorsed. So, as I said, they're high-level documents that guide and inform the next stage of the schematic, conceptual and detailed designs. And during the latter design stages, it's not unusual for the inclusion of items that may not be represented exactly as they are on the master plan, and in fact may not be there because we may find ground conditions, for example, that we weren't aware of when the master plan was done, that need some different treatments. In the case of the western lawn at Footscray Park, there has been the inclusion in the detailed design of items such as a granitic sand path, a grassed swale drain and park benches, all included to add value to the park, assist operations and maintenance and overall enhance the space while being respectful of the site's heritage. So you won't see those three things in the master plan because they've come later in the detailed design.
Thank you very much, Chair. Are there any other questions from Ms Schwab?
Yes. Sharon's second question is installation of drainage and irrigation systems plus aeration, fertilisation, scarifying, herbicide and topsoiling of high-grade turf plus line markings on grass is being used by Council as an effective way to manage and maintain high-functioning open spaces without a track. This maintenance and management approach can be seen at Johnson Reserve, Henry Turner Reserve South and Yarraville Gardens, just to name a few. Can Council use these ground maintenance and management approaches on Footscray Park Western Lawn, yes or no?
I might defer to Mr Patrick Jess for this one.
Thank you, Chair. Footscray Park Western Lawn has unique characteristics compared to some of our other sites. It is acknowledged there are multiple ways to manage turf, and it was deemed, in the case of the Western Lawn area, a physical barrier in the form of a granitic sand path was the optimal solution in managing competing turf species, while also providing accessibility for prams and wheelchairs and a facility for walking and jogging.
Thank you, Ms Jess.
Can I just add to that,
Please.
Chair, that we're currently at the Braybrook Hub, and the Skinner Reserve, which is just behind this building and part of the precinct, has exactly the same turf as we're wanting to put into Footscray Park, and it has a path around it which is actually concrete. But in the case of Footscray Park, given the heritage considerations and the aeration, irrigation, etc., the granitic path was seen as more suitable.
Ms Schwab, I will note that the question is a bit tight-ended, yes or no, and that Council staff have endeavoured to give quite an extensive response, but if that is not satisfactory, please feel free to reach out to Council, and I'm sure either Chief Executive Officer or Mr Jess will provide a more extensive response to your question.
We have a third question. No, the second question. Have I read installation of drainage?
That's it, the third question.
Yeah, the third question. Thank you, Chair. Footscray Park's Western Lawn is designated for use by residents for informal recreation and play and off-leash areas for dogs. What area of the Western Lawn is being permanently allocated for residents' use benefits, separate to organised sport, where clubs will receive priority use in all peak use periods?
I might defer to Mr Jess for this question.
Thank you, Chair. The 2011 Footscray Park Master Plan actually lists the Western Lawn area as an active use precinct. It is designated for large festivals, community events, a dog off-lead area, and casual and formal sporting uses. There is no intent to permanently or exclusively allocate any of this space. In addition, it should be noted that the Eastern Lawn and the Lynch's Bridge precinct at Footscray Park, which are expansive open grassed areas, are not available for sporting use. They are designated exclusively for informal recreation pursuits and non-sporting community events. This approach provides for an equitable and balanced outcome for all of our community and visitors to enjoy.
Thank you very much, Mr Jess. Are
So
there
we
any other
now
questions?
have a question from Wendy Davidson. Wendy asks, the Footscray Park Community Advisory Panel report dated November 2019 determined a walking track duplicates current walking tracks, is incompatible with the Edwardian era architectural landscape of the park, and it would dissect the Western Lawn, reducing residents' already limited open space. Patrick Jess read that report in full and recommended rejection of a pavilion track, fencing and light towers. Did the Director of Infrastructure or any council staff member communicate to the consultant that a requirement of the design brief is that they respect the Edwardian era architectural landscape values of the park, not include a track and not to dissect the Western Lawn?
I might defer to Mr Jess.
Thank you, Chair. It was a requirement of the brief that the consultant consider and take into account previous master plans, heritage studies and consultants' reports. Council, as part of its due diligence, sought advice from Heritage Victoria, who concluded that the works or activities do not harm the cultural heritage significance of the place.
Thank you very much, Mr Jess.
And the second question is, In relation to Footscray Park's Western Lawn, how many design plans were prepared for consideration by council without a track? Can council please immediately share the design plans prepared by the consultant for Footscray Park's Western Lawn that exclude a track with both community and councillors? And I know Mr Jess will want to answer this, but if I can mention that we have updated the Western Lawn information on our website, and you will see a plan of the works that are happening there now on the Western Lawn.
Thank you. Theo. I might again defer to Mr Jess if there's anything to add.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it has previously been answered regarding the master planning process and further design. The design process inherently involves a number of concepts to be considered. The scheme chosen is inclusive of a granitic sand path around the perimeter of the Western Lawn. The purpose of this is to achieve a barrier between turf species and assist with ongoing maintenance and asset management, reduce the need for chemical treatments, support passive use such as walking and jogging when community sport is being played, and also allow use of the space in inclement weather conditions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, I've been alerted that we are reaching the extent of council question time. Can I have a councillor to move? Councillor Carter, seconder Councillor Lamb. Let's procedural. Put it to vote. All councillors in favour of extending question time? And the motion is moved. Public question time extended for another 15 minutes. So are there any other questions?
I think, Mr Jess, did you finish your answer there?
Yes.
Okay, yes, we have a third question. Has any Maribyrnong Council staff member, contractor and or third party working on the Footscray Park Western Lawn project been subject to a confidentiality agreement? If yes, as this is a matter of public interest, who and why? Would you like me to respond?
Yes, please, I think so.
All contractual agreements, as I'm sure you'd understand, associated with the Western Lawn project have our standard contract arrangements that council usually enters into. So where things are of a confidential nature, staff are aware that they don't need to, they can't make those available. There's nothing, I believe, that's confidential about the granitic path and the design for the Western Lawn, and as I said, that is now up on our website.
So just on that, the question asked specifically confidentiality agreements? Is that, sorry, or did I mishear that?
It did say that, so I suppose I was trying to say I don't think Mr Jess, we haven't asked staff to sign confidentiality agreements. The contract itself was publicly endorsed at a council meeting in December last year, so the name of the contract price, etc., was all disclosed, and then there was a further report in April last year that we needed to, because of what we'd found on the site plus the impact of flooding, council needed to and resolved on adding a further $4 million to the price.
I might, for the sake of the resident, and CEO, correct me where I am wrong, in the ordinary course where a project does go out to tender, which I assume this project did, and has been, and
Yes.
as is in the ordinary course for many council projects, council laws must then approve the approved candidate that has succeeded in the tender, and that goes to a public council meeting for the community to see.
Council approves any project over 2 million. Any projects under 2 million, I'm able to approve under delegation. This was certainly more than 2 million. And there is quite a comprehensive procurement and assessment process that we have policies and procedures to follow that's gone through with the assessment panel. When the assessment panel's made its recommendation, that then is signed off and put to the council. So the council don't choose which contractor, because I think the inspectorate and the ombudsman would have an issue with that. But
I think so with the community as well.
yeah, it is an independent process undertaken by staff but recommended to council, so council have that final sign-off in the chamber.
Ms Davis, and if you require assistance finding that particular meeting in which those particular documents are referred to, please please contact council and we are more than happy to assist you. So, yeah,
So
any more
now we
questions?
have 3 questions from Marie Pardee. I think there's 3, yes. So the first question is, a track on Footscray Park's Western goes against all stakeholders' recommendations for how our open space is designed and used. At last week's meeting, CEO Celia Haddock acknowledged that it was an error by council to include a track in the contract brief for turf upgrades to Western Lawn. I'm sorry, I didn't, and we can check the record on that because I think the minutes are out. I didn't say there was an error. I said it was an oversight that we hadn't provided the information to the public, and I apologised for that. How does such an egregious error occur? And then there's more information about the error, but we do have the minutes here. I don't know if anyone could read out what's been recorded
Ms.
there.
King, or governance, if that is
If
possible.
either the manager governance or the director corporate services has that. Because I stand by what I said publicly, that I did acknowledge and apologise for the,
Oversight and
I think what I included, it was an oversight and information, not an error in terms of the plans and the contract.
Might I
brief.
insist that we proceed and come back to this question? Oh,
Thank you.
Through the Chair, the unconfirmed minutes record that the Chief Executive Officer acknowledged that she was disappointed that the community were not informed about the plans for the Western Lawn and that this was an oversight which should not have happened. The Chief Executive Officer advised that Council will be reviewing its processes to ensure that this will never happen again.
thank you very much, Ms. King. I think that addresses the question.
Thank you. So the second question, the first part of the question relates to the coroner's report on the tragic drownings at Footscray Park. That report is available on the website, on the coroner's, it's publicly available on the coroner's website, so I'm not going to read that out, and I don't want it to be disturbing to any families that were involved in that situation. But in regard to, so I'm not going to read that part out. The second part of the question says, in relation to the current unendorsed works to the Western Lawn, they raise serious issues of competence at council. Is the CEO and or councillors planning an external investigation into these matters, especially management teams with oversight on these matters? And I will just first point out that the current works were not unendorsed. They were endorsed by council. However, the officers, and I take responsibility for this, did not inform the public, which is our job to do that. It is not the councillors. The councillors make the decision and then the officers carry it out. And yes, I have undertaken an investigation over the last 2 weeks about this. And yes, action has been taken, but that's my role as the employer, not my role to publicly make available at a council meeting. As I said, I acknowledged that I was disappointed that the community were not informed. And we are reviewing, well, we've done a 2-week review and now we're going into some further things. So that was where I want to leave it. Thank you, Chair.
No, I think I won't make any commentary in relation to that. Are there any other questions?
There is one further question. I have just learned that it seems possible to vary the contract that was signed in error. The contract was not signed in error, so I do need to correct that, for works at Footscray Park. Can you please provide an update on the process of this variation? Has the variation been negotiated and agreed to? When can we expect it to be finalised? So currently, there is no decision to vary the design or the contract. I have offered to meet with Friends of Footscray Park to go over the design and any queries they have. I haven't had an invitation yet, and the Director of Infrastructure has done the same, but I do understand that the Friends of Footscray Park want to meet with councillors and myself as soon as possible, so I believe that's being set up. So there has been no decision to vary the contract. If there was a decision to vary the contract, that would need to go through a full formal council meeting, because the variations are of a level, given we've already had variations, that it has to go through the chamber.
Before I call an end to public question, Miss Party, I might insist that you contact council staff to answer your queries and to double check each of the questions raised tonight, just to ensure that any questions that are raised can genuinely be answered by council staff with a productive answer rather than
And
a
Chair,
continuous.
I am happy to meet with any member of the public or groups about this, as is the Director Infrastructure, as is the Director Corporate, in terms of our procurement processes and the rules around that.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Through the chair, if it's all right.
Please.
I might just add, because I think the question is too, because as councillors we've been approached and we have said that we would look into options for a variation. So whilst there has been no decision made, councillors have been provided with 3 options for variations. The strengths and, I guess, detractors from those options and the associated cost implications, guidance, I should say, because there's a whole lot of mitigating factors with regards to disturbing the soil. So those are being considered by council at this time, councillors, in discussion with the CEO and executive. But just to correct, just to outline that we have seen those options very recently, and that conversation is occurring now, but there is no formal variation to the contract.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for that clarification. CEO, are there any other questions?
That is the final question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, I will now call an end to public question time. We'll now move on to agenda item 5.1, confirmation of the minutes of the City Development Delegated Committee meeting for 13 December 2023. I call for Council to move that the minutes of the City Development Delegated Committee meeting held on 13 December 2023 be confirmed. Councillor Lamb.
For office recommendation that the City Development Delegating Committee confirm the minute of the City Development Delegating Committee meeting held on 13th of December 23.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Crawford, are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally second.
In that case, I now put the motion to, any councillors for the any councillors want to speak for the motion? Any councillors speaking against the motion? In that case, I now put the motion to vote. All those in favour? And I declare the motion carried. Moving on to agenda item 6.1, planning permit application at 11 to 13 Pickett Street, Footscray. CEO, are there any requests to address the committee tonight?
We have no request to address the committee, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll call for council to move a motion in regard to agenda item 6.1. Oh, Councillor Thomas.
That the City Development Delegated Committee, 1, issue a planning permit for the construction of an apartment building within a special building overlay and option in car parking requirements at 11 to 13 Pickett Street, Footscray, subject to conditions contained in attachment 1, and 2, note the delegation to the manager, City Development, the authority to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of the issuing of this plan.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Crawford. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly to say that this is a sort of amendment, if you like, to an original application. We haven't received any objections to it, so happy to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any speakers for the motion or speakers against the motion? In that case, I now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And I declare the motion carried. Now moving on to agenda item 6.2, Ryco Precinct, Footscray, Amendment to Development Plan and Planning Permit. Chief Executive Officer, are there any questions or requests to address the committee tonight?
Yes, we have one request, and Could I invite Paul Lewis on behalf of the applicant to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes? If you'd like to come to the microphone, please.
Okay, I think that's should be working okay.
Great.
First off, thank you, Council, for the opportunity to provide a submission in support of this application. On behalf of the applicant and the project team, we'd really like to thank Council and commend the Council officers for its assistance throughout the application process. From our perspective as the applicants, it's really been effectively a textbook example of how the planning process should work. This has been a process of close collaboration with Council officers from the initial pre-application meeting onwards, and in our view it's led to a more refined and resolved proposal that will deliver an outstanding outcome for the Footscray Activity Centre. The project team sought to engage early and often with Council, and the project really is all the better for it. Designed by acclaimed architectural practice JCB with landscape architecture by Marla, the proposed development represents a high-quality, contemporary and sustainable architectural outcome that responds sensitively to the surrounding character, delivering a new landscape plaza and pedestrian linkages to better knit the Footscray Community Arts Centre into the broader precinct. Most critically, the proposed development will directly address the current housing affordability crisis, delivering 40% of its dwellings as affordable housing through Assemble's build-to-rent-to-own model. This is more than 8 times the requirement of the DPO 16 and the existing requirements of the approval. This will deliver over 180 new affordable housing dwellings in high amenity tenure-blind typologies, which is critical for the Footscray community. In summary, the proposed amended development plan and development application will facilitate a substantial community benefit that is entirely befitting this landmark site. The proposal is wholly aligned with Council's planning ambitions for the Ryco site and for the Footscray Activity Centre. It's an incredibly exciting project, and it's a project that Assemble and the whole project team are really excited to deliver. Again, we commend Council for its assistance throughout this application process, and we respectfully request the Council's support the recommendations of the officers.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for your succinct and quite short address to the committee. Are there any other questions?
No
Yes,
further.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes, please, Councillor.
Yeah, could you please explain to me a page, item 89 regarding about the affordable social housing on the red map? Have you got that in front of you?
I don't have the report in front of me, but
Okay.
happy to answer any questions about it.
All right, okay, so I was looking at the rent and the moderate income.
Sorry, can we provide that, put it on the screen, or?
Sorry, is this in relation to how we've calibrated and
Yeah,
calculated
how
the
you
affordable?
calculated, you know, for the people with low,
Sure. So basically,
income.
the way affordable housing is calculated based on the requirements of the Planning and Environment Act is that the state government will issue a gazette each year which identifies particular income brackets for very low, and moderate income households. So the way we've designed and delivered the affordable housing in the precinct is that each typology is being calibrated to identify what the rent for an initial 5-year period and then what the likely future mortgage repayments on those typologies would be. We've assessed those against the upper and lower bands of each of those very low and moderate income brackets, and of those we're able to deliver, I think there's circa 60 to 70% of the typologies that would be affordable broadly across the precinct. The commitment to 40% allows for flexibility in case there are challenges or changes to those as the project moves forward. We've also sought to make sure that the way we're calculating affordability of those typologies, that they're suitable to particular income brackets, but also particular types of households. So within that, we're not suggesting that a 1-bedroom studio is affordable to a family with children. We've made sure that those typologies that are deemed as affordable to suitable households, that is. And then you'll see that there's changes between the rental requirements and the mortgage requirements as well. So we've made sure that the affordability would carry over the balance of both the initial rental period and the ongoing lifespan of the mortgage.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
thank you.
Councillor, any further questions? Councillor Crawford?
Yeah, so firstly, thanks for presenting tonight, and it's really interesting to look at this affordable package that you've got. I guess building on Councillor Lamb's question, the table that's presented in our agenda tonight, it has like a breakdown of what we consider affordable for each of the different brackets. with your pricing. So for example, there's nothing affordable under the very low income. There's sort of half-half in the low income, and then in the moderate income, it's a bit more affordable. So I guess just curious as to how you see that playing out for people on that very low income. Like, it's just a simply case of that's not an offering for them, and they'd have to look elsewhere, or, you know, are you sort of considering ways to try to include everyone?
We completely appreciate the need to provide affordable housing across the spectrum of housing needs, so be it, you know, crisis accommodation at one end through to a delivery model like Assemble's build to rent to own that is more geared towards the moderate income brackets. Across their portfolio, Assemble is delivering housing that's geared for low and very low income households in certain instances. In this precinct, we've looked to the build to rent to own model primarily because it delivers a pathway into home ownership rather than long-term rental. So it allows for people who have no savings or deposit saved at the time to move into a rental agreement on a certain rate that allows them to save for the deposit over the lifespan of a 5-year lease. So it's allowing people who would otherwise be entirely dependent on the bank of mum and dad effectively to move into home ownership long term. So we appreciate that it's not geared for all people of particular need. I don't think we can have a silver bullet for that. This is a sort of industry-wide, society-wide issue at the moment. We're providing a more targeted focus on people allowing them to move into home ownership. And we have also sought to calibrate that at a much higher percentage than would be typically required. So rather than the 5% affordable housing delivery that's required under the DPO and existing approval, we've sought to deliver over 40% on this site.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor O'Gara?
Thanks so much for the presentation. And I think just to state overall, from a permit point of view, I don't see any problem with the proposal. I suppose I'm more interested in pursuing the questions that have been made here, because it's partly a question. It's partly how we present affordability to the public. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I look at that table that Councillor Crawford referred to, it doesn't really seem to vary from what are effectively the average or median private rentals in the area. In fact, arguably, well, obviously the quality will be higher, but arguably they may even be above average private rentals. So I think from the point of view of, you know, what we call affordable housing, I think it's questionable. As I said, look, the permit, I don't see any problem with the permit. I think it's, you know, it's a good build. But yeah, I think the way we use the terminology, I think we've got to be a bit careful in what we're saying to people, given that, yeah, as I say, I don't think there's much differential, if any, with private rentals in the area.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other questions, councillors? I might have one myself. Ms. Lewis, apologies for keeping me at the stand.
No, you're okay.
In respect of the moderate, the low, the very low income earners, is that calculation, does that take into consideration government incentives in relation to first home buyers and whatnot as well, in terms of and the ever increasing issue of stamp duty and land tax, which rises every single year? Does that take that into account, or are we just accounting for what you determine the median, the Gazette determines the sort of median
I'd
income?
have to take that question on notice, but yeah. So we wouldn't be taking into account. Yeah, we wouldn't be taking into account further subsidy. It's purely linked to the
No,
Gazette,
greatly
so-
appreciated, because that means that we have quite a good estimate of what we can expect in terms of the Gazette as well. Thank you very much. That appears to be the last question from the councillors. Councillors, I think speakers, actually, before I put the speakers, councillors, I call for councillors to move the motion.
Were there any other speakers?
No, there was only the singular speaker
Okay.
from my understanding. Oh, Councillor Thomas, did you have the question yourself? Sorry, I didn't see you if you did. No? Thank you very much.
No, and there's no further speakers.
Okay.
Thank you very much, CEO. In that case, I'll call council to move motion regards agenda item 6.2. Councillor Crawford.
That the City Development Delegated Committee, Part A, 1, approve the amendment to the Ryco Precinct Footscray Development Plan, including the relevant documents required at Clause 3 of Development Plan Overlay, Schedule 16 of the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme contained in Attachment 6, and 2, delegate to the Manager City Development the authority to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of the approval of the amended development plan. Part B, 3, issue an amended planning permit for the construction of multi-level mixed-use building containing offices, dwellings as of right uses, and retail premises, a reduction in the car parking requirement, and alteration of access to a road in a Transport Zone 2 at 11 to 13 and 17 Whitehall Street, Footscray, subject to conditions contained in Attachment 1. And 4, note the delegation to the Manager City Development the authority to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal which may arise as a result of the issuing of this planning permit.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? In that case, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Generally, I think it's a reasonable application. As questions have already indicated, interested particularly in the idea of 40% affordable housing. I think the principle is great. I am concerned about the actual rents and purchase amounts, but I don't see that as a reason to reject the application. For me, it's about moving in the right direction and probably, if anything, speaking to government more so than developers, but obviously developers need to be involved as well, about making sure we're getting these numbers right. As Councillor Hawkera alluded to, it's not what I would consider affordable housing, and I'm not sure if a lot of people in this situation would still consider that particularly affordable. I mean, I'm renting at the moment and I've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it is significantly cheaper as just market rate than these ones are. So admittedly, mine's not in the middle of central Footscray, and maybe it's not as nice as these ones. So hopefully these are very good quality apartments. But just I guess think that needs pointing out. Again, a purchase price of 1.118 million for a 3-bed, 2-bath. That's right up there. I'm not I'm not an expert, but personally I wouldn't consider that to be affordable either. So I think it's the right idea, but we still have some room to move as far as making it workable for people. But I do still support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I just wanted to thank councillors for raising the issue of affordability, and I support affordable housing, and I support what a few of the councillors have said. But I did just want to highlight one thing. Yes, there's been a reduction in car parking, but I do want to thank the applicant for balancing that with providing car share spaces, and I'm really hoping that this can be sort of an example in the inner areas of our municipality. It's not going to work everywhere, but of how we can sort of balance the need for people who do need cars, but also provide for those people who just want a car when they need it, and we can sort of strike the right balance. So, thanks, support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion?
I will speak for the motion.
Oh, Councillor Carter.
Yeah, so this has been a really difficult one for me to consider, and we spoke with councillors at length last night. I think the quality of the build is fantastic. I think the shortfall of 198 car spaces is shameful. I think we risk building another Joseph's Road precinct with some of the challenges that we're facing down there, where apartments have a car park. And I really regret being in a space where I have a very strong feeling about that, but I also want to support affordable housing. So I think it is a bit greedy. We know that car ownership is on the rise in the city of Maribyrnong. We know that our population, and this is something we were discussing at a strategic planning last week, looking at the census data of car ownership, and also the exponential population growth that we're experiencing. And we have seen a wholesale waiver, and admittedly supported by our planners, of a waiver of car parking in Footscray, but we're really starting to feel that now. We're starting to feel it because residents are buying into these places and expecting to be able to park on the street. So I think it has to be absolutely clear to purchasers that there isn't a permit scheme. I think the part where, and I think I alluded to it, where that contest, I guess, I land on the side of approval is the fact that it is affordable housing and a significant percentage, although I do concur with my fellow councillors' comments about is it really affordable, but it's, you know, on balance, having that, and also the car share. Having them in there, I'm really keen to get the data on that. I'm not filled with confidence, and this has nothing to do with the applicant, it's more so our planning department, and I will be bringing a motion to the next City Development Special Committee about a wholesale review of parking demand in CBD Footscray into the future councillors, because I really fear when we're looking at these developments in isolation and we're getting a waiver of 198 car spaces in one, 100 in another, we are going to see something like Joseph's Road potentially, and not alluding to all the amenity shortcomings of that because there are quite a few more, but when it comes to parking and the contest for parking, even if people are making more trips locally by foot or by bike, we know that car ownership is on the rise. So I just don't know that we're prepared for that challenge or that we have a place, but I'm really keen to see more of this car share model incorporated into designs, but to actually do a study, because I'm not sure we're across the brief and I'm not filled with confidence with what the recommendations that are being made to us. But it is great. We know that 50% of people are renting in Footscray. We know that's above the average for inner city Melbourne. So there is absolutely a need for this development. And to that, I'd say that it's great to be meeting that need, and we need the diversity of housing stock, but I am really quite concerned, but we'll watch with interest the take-up of the car share arrangements, because I think that's something that we need to be reviewing in greater detail, councillors, as part of a plan going forward. So with that, I support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Lam.
With this Councillor Carter said that my favourite about this one is social affordable housing to the community, and hopefully they can utilise them more in that. And I mean, that's the same token about the parking. You know, the CBD and Footscray is a need for more parking. Its own way, people, the business people own way, mention about that. I would like to have more and more car park. Their proposal, but hopefully that people have some mix sort of like private and social housing being together, and understanding and sharing, so harmony one.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion? Before I put the motion to vote, I might also voice my support for the motion, but reservedly so, for the many reasons mentioned tonight already. But I will hone in specific to the affordable component, solely because of my family's history with, and indeed my friends and my friends of my family's history with social and affordable housing, in particular in the flats in Flemington. I do note this is not going to be a similar situation to that completely. It's not going to be like that at all. But for me to sit here and say $1.18 million is to be affordable, exclusive of stamp duty, exclusive of rising interest rates, exclusive of land tax, exclusive of conveyancing costs and all the above, which then potentially brings your costs up to maybe $1.5 million. That's a bit much, maybe 1.2. It does raise some concern, and I know that to the credit of the developers, they have referred to the Gazette and that they've relied on that documentation provided by government, and that is your requirement. I completely get it, and I appreciate that. Don't get me wrong. But I do think it is a cautionary tale for councils, not just this one in particular, but councils, that if things are going to be considered to be affordable, all circumstances should be taken into consideration, not just a single Gazette or single government document. As we have seen tonight, government is very complex, comprised of multiple policies, multiple documents, multiple legislation, you name it. It should not be seen with a singular focus or singular lens. But in saying so, I concur with Councillor Lamb, particularly in relation to the social and affordable housing, in relation to Councillor Thomas's and Councillor Carter's comments to the ride share. That is to be commended. And I also raised my concerns in relation to the parking reductions as well, which, you know, Councillor Carter is has had a very adamant stance on for quite a long time. Nonetheless, I express my support for the motion, in particular because of the 40% affordable housing. Councillors, seeing as there are no other speakers for the motion, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And I declare the motion carried. I believe that is the last agenda items, councillors. I'll call, in that case, I declare the motion carried. Move on. We'll be moving to councillor question time. Questions asked by councillors must be in accordance with Rule 53.5 of the Governance Rules. Council question time is limited to 15 minutes unless an extension is resolved by council. Councillors, any questions tonight? If not, I'll call a close to councillor question time. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No items of urgent business. That concludes our meeting tonight, councillors, and the gallery. I declare that the meeting is closed at 7:24 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well done, good timing.
Thank you, Chair.